I think it is ultimately about bringing about an internal consensus from the people within the Muslim community and then incorporating that in the form of law which is then universally acceptable, Jha added. In an interview with ET Now, Sanjay, spokesperson, Congress, gives his take on the SC verdict on triple talaq case. Edited excerpts. The government is to frame a law in 6 months, so, the Supreme Court says, look, I have to uphold the triple talaq practice and have to ask the government to actually bring legislation before any sort of change in practice is meted out. Sanjay, I think until one reads the entire verdict it will be a little difficult or premature to make a complete observation on it. From what I am reading on your channel and what seems to be the initial statement from the Supreme Court, it is very evident that they have not held triple talaq to be unconstitutional, so that is, I think, the principal observation that the Supreme Court has made. On the other hand, they have at the same time said that for any amendments to happen to the current triple talaq issue, it is for the legislators to get together and come up with a legislative formula that would be applicable for the issue of divorce within the Muslim community. I think ultimately, and which I think is a valid point, because in the day I think the lawmaking is the part and the role of Parliament, and let the Parliament then have a vigorous debate in terms of what should be the appropriate procedure for the divorce laws applicable to the Muslim community that respects the Muslim women in particular, who get a unilateral and an abrupt termination of a marriage based on the execution of triple talaq as has been traditionally done. So I think we will have to wait and see in terms of the full verdict, but Parliament ultimately is the sacrosanct body that frames laws and regulations, and I think it will be a vigorous debate, and I am sure that end of the day this 6-month injunction gives everyone an appropriate time to come up with a very acceptable framework. And there are two. One is of course the Sharia law, and then we do have the law that is applicable on the Indian soil out here. So basically what the Supreme Court is saying, that is something that is going to take precedence over the Sharia law. In such a scenario, what do you expect the government to do? How are they going to find themselves a law in relation to the triple talaq which will also be able to marry the principles of the Sharia law? Sanjay, firstly, remember that triple talaq is not part of the Quran, so that is one part that we need to accept, and I think in terms of the way, for example, there has been a lot of misinterpretation as well. Like for example, if one reads the entire act, it clearly says that there is actually a time window of 90 days or 120 days over which actually the triple talaq is meant to be made effective. There is a scope given for arbitration and involvement of family and friends to bring about reconciliation. So I think end of day what this will create is an environment of consensus that you will have to talk to the people from the Muslim community, get their views. There are many learned religious leaders out there. There are also very progressive people out there who want to think about change. So I think it is ultimately about bringing about an internal consensus from the people within the Muslim community and then incorporating that in the form of law which is then universally acceptable. End of day, I think Parliament then will become totally responsible for ensuring that no religious community in a very secular India sees that it has been done and because it has not been properly represented. So to that extent, I think it will result in something more positive as an outcome. Triple talaq case. Chronology of events. Need for society to reform. Asaduddin Owaisi on triple talaq. Triple talaq victims hail Supreme Court verdict. Supreme Court to pronounce judgment on triple talaq tomorrow. Expedite triple talaq verdict. Petitioners to CJI.